There are so many lessons to learn from conflict. I think the most important lesson is to avoid conflict at all cost. My whole family history is tied to the First World War in the Middle East. My great uncle was a Scottish soldier fighting in Gallipoli, and he died in his first battle. And when news of his death went back to the family in Scotland, the sadness that fell over our family in Scotland was so strong that they decided at that moment to leave their native land and to move to America. And in a way, the fact that my grandmother in America married my grandfather and had my mother, my existence really is a result of the death of my great uncle in Gallipoli. And I visited his grave in Gallipoli with my mother, with my son, and I felt a very strong personal tie to that story, to that history. And I think that too made me really want to write about the experience of common soldiers like my great uncle, who fought and died or survived in the Great War in the Middle East. I was very interested in the role of the First World War as a breaking point in that region's relationship with the Ottoman Empire. And even in my book, The Arabs, I really treated the First World War as a major turning point in the modern history of the Arab world. So professionally, I thought it would be very important to focus on the 4 years of the war in a book-length study, examining all of the fronts in which the Ottomans were engaged. So I see the First World War in 1918 and the fall of the Ottoman Empire as one of the major turning points in the modern history of the Arab world. And today we are still living with the legacy of the First World War in the Middle East, more than in any other part of the world that was caught up in that conflict. There are still unresolved questions, such as the dispute between Palestine and Israel, or indeed the status of the Kurdish people in Turkey, in Syria, in Iraq, and Iran, that we can say really go back to the consequences of the way the borders were drawn in the aftermath of the fall of the Ottoman Empire. All of their partition diplomacy was focusing on how to establish a balance of power between the great European empires, Britain, France, Russia. They never thought of the Middle East as an area with a political future in its own right. And they never sought the consent of the people of the region in trying to draw the boundaries of the successor states that would be the political future. They never thought of a balance of power in the Middle East. They thought of a balance of power in European empires. So yes, I think there are important lessons to take away from the First World War in the Middle East that are relevant to us today.